All right, it is the wee hours of Sunday morning, and it's time for showing up. I showed up. Thank you for showing up. I would have been here earlier. This is kind of late in the morning for me to be doing the showing up video, but I was wrestling with some problems in my little game thing that I'm doing. There's an issue with every piece of software, with everything in general, actually, that if you don't know the name of your problem, it's very, very difficult to find the solution. You need to know the magic words to put into a search engine to make your problem come up and potentially the solution to it. So let's talk a little bit about what the problem I've been facing is, and how I needed to fix it. Let's jump over here to the Godot editor. Do the little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit. But you can see here I've got this game, and let's run it, and we can see what the problem is. Now, here we have my game, and it responds to controller input. I've already talked about this a little, and I've got a groper on the screen. He doesn't have any AI yet, so he doesn't actually try to do anything. Now, here's the thing. I run up, and I run into him, and I stop, which is fine as long as I'm moving to the side. But when I'm moving up, he gets stuck. He gets stuck to me, and now I can't move up at all. I have to move over to the side, and I can only move kind of at this weird angle. And you can see that the region I'm walking around in doesn't extend very far. That's another thing, is the way I want the world to work is not by default implemented. So you can see this is an issue. I can move down all I want, but I can't move up. I can move to the right all I want, but I can't move left. You can see me move a little bit to the right, but then when I move left, I stop right here at the groper. So, why does this happen? Let's take a look at our script, okay? If I come over here to the script and I pick my player, this is the only place I have any real working code. See, it's like we come over here, we look at our groper. All right, I've got my base groper speed. I'm running everything in the physics process so I can do my collisions in it. And I set the velocity, but then I immediately set my direction to 0. And then I go, hey, if the direction is not 0, we're going to do this. Otherwise, we're just going to move the velocity towards 0 by the base groper speed, because we have kind of an automatic deceleration thing going on there. So the groper is doing all of this stuff, but that's fairly basic. And you see here it calls move and slide. And then over here we have the player, who is also calling move and slide. Since they're both calling move and slide, and that's the way they move, this issue with the way that they are moving has to be with move and slide. There has to be something going on with move and slide. Now, as a developer who's conversant with C++, it might be my immediate impulse to say, well, let's look at the code for move and slide and see what it does. But this is such a basic thing. Like, this problem is so basic and so bad. Like, right here again, I'm stuck trying to move past him. Okay? Like, right here, the problem is so clearly bad and wrong and awful that obviously nobody would want this to happen in their game. It can't be a bug in move and slide. If it was a bug in move and slide, everybody would be shitting little green apples over it, and nobody would want to use this game engine. So there's something wrong in what I'm doing. Now, there are a couple of things that I could do to try and resolve this, But the real issue is this. And you have to know the magic word. The magic word is motion mode. Now, as you can see, tooltips are not working very well in this build of Godot for some reason. And fundamentally, the issue here is that when the motion mode is set to grounded, it treats ceilings and walls differently based on the concept of things being up and down. What you want to do is set it to floating. The concept of walls and ceilings being different doesn't apply to, it doesn't apply in this particular circumstance. So if we now build this and we've got the player set to floating, well, we still have the problem. I wonder what it might be. Oh, could it be that the groper is also set to grounded and needs to be set to floating? Hey, presto, there we go. If we do that, now with both of them set to floating, not only does the groper not get stuck, the groper doesn't move around. That fixes the whole problem. But in order to fix this problem, you have to know the magic word. And it's not this particular problem that I want to deal with. It's the question of knowing the magic words. Whenever you have any project of any complexity, you develop what we call tribal knowledge. And tribal knowledge is stuff that people know about, but they don't talk about because everybody knows it. And when you have this stuff that everybody knows and that nobody is talking about, gradually that all migrates off to the side and becomes this kind of in-grouping, where if you don't know this stuff, obviously you're not one of us. I used to converse with a number of Apple registered developers, and every so often they would yell at me and they would say, "You're not even a registered Apple developer. We're a small community. We know who the people in our community are." It's true. I'm not a registered Apple developer. I'm just a developer in general, and I know something about development. Just because you're developing on Apple doesn't mean the general concepts of development change. Nothing actually alters when you go and you work on a particular platform or in a particular engine or with a particular API or on a particular operating system. Nothing actually changes about development because it all goes down to first principles. It all comes down to, all digital logic boils down to set, test, unary not, and logical OR. That's it. Because with unary not and logical OR, you can construct a NOR gate. And if you can construct a NOR gate, then you can construct all of the digital logic. Like, it's basic Peirce's arrow. Which, again, Peirce's arrow is one of those things, if you know that magic word, you can look it up and you can find out how to construct every single logic gate out of NOR gates. But if you don't know these magic words, you're never going to find it. You're not going to think of Peirce's arrow. You're going to say, how do I build the basic logic gates? And you're going to get all kinds of crap and garbage about how logic gates work and what logic gates are, and building them out of smaller pieces is not likely to be in there unless you search through each and every one of them. Life is like that. Everything that you run into in any given field, there's going to be a quantity of tribal knowledge that you're just expected to know, and if you don't know it, then you're fucked. But nobody will teach that to you, and learning that knowledge, learning that tribal knowledge, is largely what you're supposed to do in trade school, in university, in your entry-level job. That's where you're supposed to pick up all of that stuff everybody knows. It's not really about your degree or your diploma or your certificate or your resume. It's about knowing the stuff. And knowing the stuff, they can't exactly give you a standardized tests on, do you understand what a TPS report is? Oh, yeah, that's a bullshit report you're expected to generate every week for no good reason because people need you to prove you're doing something. It comes from the movie Office Space, the idea of a TPS report, and a TPS report must always have a cover sheet. The idea of writing these reports every week is to prove that you had enough shit to do all week to have something to write down. And nobody's going to read the report unless something's wrong. And it seems like bullshit, but it's one of those status check things. It's like you come to work every day and you sit here and you do something. What do? I mean, you know what you do, right? Write down what you did. Write down what you did this week. Here's what I did this week. Oh, okay, so you're doing something. I'm not going to read what you did, but I'm going to look and go, oh, there's 3 pages of shit. Wow, he got a lot of work done this week. And that kind of vibe check is how jobs work a lot of the time. And when you sit there and go, this is stupid. Why do I have to write this report? Because if you can't write the report, you're worthless and we don't need you. It's really that simple. If you can't tell me what you did all week, but you know what I did all week, it's not about you. It's about people in general. It's about the 8,000 employees we have here. I don't know what all 8,000 of these employees do. I don't have the slightest fucking clue. But if I make them write a report, then number one, if they have a cover sheet, I know they took this seriously. Number two, if they write at least a full page of here's what I did this week, I know they did something. I don't actually care what it is they do. I'm not going to check. I'm not going to run around after them. But if somebody can't write that report, or if the stuff they write in the report is like obviously bullshit, then we don't need that person. I'm not going to read the report unless you're a jerk. If I don't like you and I don't want you to work here, I'm going to go pull your TPS reports and I'm going to look at them and I'm going to go, okay, is this guy completely full of shit? What's he doing? Can I hand this stuff that he's doing off to somebody else? They're ammunition for when people think you're a jerk. So if you're a jerk, you don't want to write them. A tremendous amount of working in America, I mean, not just in corporate America, but just in companies in general. A huge quantity of it is just letting people manage your work without understanding what your work actually is. Because we're trying to genericize everything. There are all kinds of problems with this concept, but the reality is, it's the only way a company can work. If you've got 10,000 employees, you hire a brand new manager, and you say, hey, go manage those 10,000 employees. That's not something you can just come straight out of the gate and do. You don't automatically know what all 10,000 of these people are doing. It's going to take you time to learn that. And these reports that you have to send in, they help you understand that. And you know that when a guy hands you a report and it has the cover sheet on it and it's got 4 pages, that guy gets shit done. You should probably know what that guy's doing. You should probably know, like, how well he does it. You should probably know what people think about him. Anyway, I'm getting off the topic here. This tribal knowledge and shit that you're supposed to know whenever you go and work on something, like, what do you need to know to be a game developer? People always go, oh, game development is easy. Game development is not... It's not a smaller, simple subset of development. Game development is a complex and difficult specialty of development in general. You still need to know everything you need to know to be a developer. It's just that now, as a game developer, you also need to know a boatload of other shit that you don't need to know for other development. It's like... you don't generally have to program AI when you're like a corporate developer. If you're doing spreadsheets and reports and databases, you don't need to understand pathfinding. You don't need to understand routing. You don't need to understand how to multi-thread your system. You can just batch mode it the whole time. In game development, there's a lot of new stuff you're expected to know, and you're expected to learn, and you're expected to do, and it's all very different. So just because you've been a developer for a long time, like I have, doesn't mean you're automatically going to understand game development. I've been a game developer for a long time. I released my first game in '93, and God, that's a long time. I'm still struck by that. But since then, I've never felt like any of my... Since about 1994, I released a total of 3 games, and all of them were basically garbage. And my first game was kind of popular. I did a remake of Drug Wars, which I called Dope Wars, and I added music and color and sound and all kinds of stuff. And I added a few new game elements. I changed stuff around a bunch. That was fairly well received, but the other stuff that I built, when I built Murder Mansion and when I built Railgun, those were not well received. There was a long time between those. I released Murder Mansion in '94. I almost invented the idle game. Almost. And this is a good thing to kind of talk about, because almost is the same as nothing. Almost is bullshit, okay? I almost did a thing is exactly the same as saying I did not do a thing. And the thing was, I had built Dope Wars, and I said, wait a minute, what if, instead of having to sit there and tell the game what to do, what if the game just ran on a timer? And you said, here are the instructions for what I want you to do, and then the game just kind of automatically took the instructions over and over again. Because you would get in these cycles, you would go, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do this. And then I'm going to do it all over again, and I'm going to do it all over again, and I'm going to do it all over again. And I said, what if, instead of having to do it all over again, you told the game, do these things, and every so often it would just do them. And it would just do that all by itself. And that way, you could log on to the BBS and you could say, here are my instructions, and you could leave, and then you could come back the next day and it would have done all the stuff you told it to do. And then now you could look at the state of things now, and you could give it new instructions and tell it new stuff to do. Wouldn't that be cool? And my friend Curtis said, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Who the fuck wants a game you don't actually play? Oh, okay. And Curtis told me that what I should do instead was make a multiplayer game. And I said, oh, all right. And I made Murder Mansion, which is the stupidest fucking idea ever. Because here's what it was, okay? It was Clue, except you would log in and you would take your turn, and then you would have to wait for every other player to log in and take their turn. That is such a bad idea. I don't know what the fuck was wrong with me. Like, that is the dumbest concept. Log into this game for 2 minutes and then just wait until everybody else is logged into it. I don't know what my fucking problem is coming up with that game. The idle game idea, it was kind of exciting. It was kind of cool, but Curtis said it was stupid. And I respected Curtis, and I thought he was smart, so I didn't do it. If I had done it, I would have invented the idle game in 1994. But I didn't. Which is what almost means. Almost means you fucking didn't. So I had the idea. I didn't do anything with it. Somebody else had the idea, and they did something with it. The idea is worthless. It's what you do with it that counts. If you don't do anything, the idea isn't worth anything. All right, so anyway, here's the thing that I was working on over here to to kind of get everything fixed. Oh, here's a thing that I wanted to talk about. You can see over here that I've got player speed, player acceleration, and player deceleration. It's easier to see in the script. But yeah, over here we've got acceleration and we've got deceleration, and these are exported so you can see them over here in the. Helps if you actually turn on the editor. So we've got speed and we've got acceleration and we've got deceleration, and more importantly, we have got all of this stuff exported to a final executable so it can be run through Steam. Because when I run it through Steam, my Steam controller works completely, and I can actually use the D-pad to move. So there that is, and I can use the D-pad, or I can use the stick. And you see, there's the stick. There's the D-pad. Or I can use the arrow keys on the keyboard. Or I can use the WASD keys on the keyboard. I like to use a controller, but multiple input vectors are a good idea. I want to do an input editor. I haven't done an input editor yet. I feel like I should do one. But anyway, we've got this one fixed, so it's got the proper floating flag on it. We just we don't have any actual damage going on. So anyway, the thing here is that you may not be able to tell immediately, but you don't just jump straight to the appropriate speed. Huh. What's going on there? Why is moving down slower? Huh. That's something I should take a look at. Why would moving down be slower? Your X times base player speed, your Y times base player speed. Get the vector player up, player down. dir X works in both directions and dir Y works in both directions, then... Huh. Interesting. Let's kick back over here and we'll see if it's just the stick. Yeah, that's interesting. So it's only the stick. Here's my fucking cable. I've been running into issues with this cable. Yeah, it's just the cable. I need new USB cables. These things are fucking old. The controller's fucking old. I mean, what am I talking about? But anyway, the acceleration on this, it's kind of hard to see here. Let's alter this. Let's change the acceleration to 1. So if we change it to 1 and we rebuild over here, then we will end up with a new version of the game. And now, when I move, I'm just going to use the arrow keys here. You can see it takes some time to get up to speed. And it takes some time to slow down. And it gives you this kind of floaty feel. You can also set it to 60, and then it's like instant. If we restart it here, start, stop, immediate. There's no acceleration at all. But 10 works well. And you can see there's a little bit of a start and there's a little bit of a stop. And you can set them independently. This is a this is a thing that I kind of enjoy doing, is having some notion of how the world affects your movement. Nobody really talks about this. And because nobody really talks about this, they don't really teach how to do it. You got to figure it out yourself. Figuring it out yourself, of course, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. The issue that I run into is that I keep thinking about people that aren't accustomed to doing this kind of stuff, who aren't used to solving their own problems and finding their own solutions. And we're not really teaching that effectively. I mean, fundamentally, the only thing that you do in software is sequence, selection, and iteration. That's it. That's all you do. Like in any programming language, you're just doing sequence, selection, and iteration. You're just putting things in the right order. Like, for example, if you look here at this script, okay, I have to know what the bass player speed, acceleration, and deceleration are before I can do any calculations with them, okay? And once I do those calculations, I have to do the calculation of the acceleration and the deceleration times the delta, because this is actually the, this is kind of the reciprocal of the number of frames that it takes. It's the, it's the frame rate divided by the frames to reach full speed. Okay? And that's kind of hard to explain. Well, it's not that hard to explain. It's like if your frame rate is 60 and you want to get up to speed in 6 frames, then the frame rate divided by the number of frames is how many frames worth of, well, this is hard to articulate, so I'm not even going to fucking bother. It's complicated. I mean, it's not complicated to do the maths. It's complicated to explain why the maths are what they are. Too complicated for me to do on video anyway. But anyway, because I'm working with acceleration and deceleration here, it changes the way that I deal with altering the velocity. If you go and you look at if we go look up some player movement code in Godot, like we grab this over here. We can come down here and let's go. No. We can typically do something like this, okay? We can typically jump into the physics process, and all we have to do is set the target velocity. Okay, and once we set the target velocity, then we just set our velocity to that, and we call move and slide. Now this is in GDScript, but in C#, it's basically the same. It's basically the same fundamental thing. And the thing about using code like that you find online is that it's the simplest and most basic form of code, and nobody ever talks about all of the different options. And I get very frustrated by that, because Everybody's like, I want to teach you how to do the thing so you can get the thing done as quickly as possible. Yeah, but that's the simplest possible version of the thing. I don't want the simplest possible version of the thing. I want a specific kind of result. And if I don't know the magic words to look up the result that I'm looking for, I can't find it. Also, sometimes people don't fucking talk about it. It's like over here on my, is it the canvas item? Or here in the playfield? No, I think it's on ground. Okay, yeah. So I've got a region enabled, okay? And that region that I've got enabled gives me a playfield to work in. I have seen so many people just come in here and say, oh, hey, I'm going to put this region in here, and that region is just going to be fuck off huge, so you can never walk past the edge of it in like any way. And then you get game after game after game, Halls of Torment, Soulstone Survivors, Hollow Cure. You get all of these horde survival games that put walls on the arena so you can't walk outside of the region. Well, I want the region to be infinite. And because I want the region to be infinite, that's going to be kind of difficult. And what I would need to do with this, okay, I've thought about this a fair amount. What I have to do is I have to move the region and everything on it to the other side. And this is kind of what I've been thinking on this is if you walk outside of a particular area of the level, what I need to do is I need to copy the opposite side over to this, well, not so much copy it as move it. And then, you know what? This all happens automatically if I make all of the stuff on the ground child items of the ground. That's interesting. That's an interesting thought. I'll have to play with it. Anyway. The way that I want it to work is I want the world to be kind of like Pac-Man. Okay, where you go through the tunnel at the side of the screen and you come in the other side of the screen. And you go off the top of the screen, you come in the bottom of the screen. But it's not on the screen because the whole world is scrolling all the time. If you go off the top of the world, you come in at the bottom of the world, but the bottom of the world is like 8 screens away or however far it is. So that's not all that difficult to do with the player because the player's in the middle of the screen. Okay, the player's in the middle of the screen, and you just go, okay, well, you're moving back onto the bottom of the screen, so we'll just move the bottom of the screen up to the top of the screen. It's not a problem. The difficulty is all of the objects that are on that part of the screen have to move with the part of the screen that you're moving up there. The part of the level that you move up there, everything in that part of the level has to move with it. That's the tough part. And I haven't figured out a good solution to that. Although I may have just figured out a good solution to that. If I make all of the objects on the ground child objects of the ground that they're on, that would change things. But then you run into the problem of having to move a child node from one space to another space when it moves. Huh. Ha 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 ha. So we just put things that don't move on there. All we do is an object that doesn't move is a child of the ground that it's on until it becomes a moving item. Once it becomes a moving item, it stops being a child. Once the child starts to move for some reason, So the child object starts to move, we relocate it from, no, we can't reorder the tree every time something moves. That's not okay. We can make obstacles children of the area. That will work. But movable objects, objects that you can pick up, those I think have to stay fairly global. I mean, not really global. Working through this is not fun to watch. I understand that, but yeah, it's been like half an hour here. And I'm just showing up and doing work and letting you guys see that I'm doing work and the amount of work that I'm doing and what the results are. And really kind of the thing that I wanted to peg on more than anything was the entire idea of the motion mode needs to be set to floating. If I had better tooltips in here. That's weird. I wish I didn't get that flashing tooltip thing. Anyway, that's that's even less fun to watch, is just me staring at things and thinking. But the entire point of this kind of showing up stuff is to be here and to do this live, because I really get frustrated with the amount of editing that people do where they just they pull out all of the thought and then you think the thought doesn't happen, but the thought does happen and it needs to happen and you need to know that it happens so you don't feel like a moron when you have to stop and think. And you're like, none of the people I watch on YouTube ever have to stop and think. They just sit there, they just come up with the idea and they just type it out. They've typed that idea out a half dozen times already. They've rehearsed this. They already know what the idea is. And they're like, hey, here's how you do this. They do not show you the process of having to search for hours and hours and hours to find out what the fuck is going on. If you don't know the magic word of motion mode to look up in the Godot documentation, if you don't know that this is a documented expected behavior of move and slide, then you're looking through. People are saying all kinds of stuff and they're going, I have this bug, and the bug is that they're an idiot and they don't know what they're doing. And yeah, I'm also an idiot and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not an expert on Godot. I only know a little bit about it and I understand how to read technical documentation. That's it. I'm not an expert here. I've been using Godot for years. I'm nowhere near an expert because everything that I do is so simple and so basic that it doesn't really count for much. I haven't done anything remotely close to a playable, releasable game And what I have done is just, it's test drivers. It's things that you can, throw together and, and then having thrown them together, you can play through and see what happens, but they don't actually form a complete game. One of the things I'm running into with the clicker game is I need to have a large number library. I've never done something like that. I don't know how to do something like that. How big are the numbers going to get? How big do I need to be prepared for them to get? How do I handle this? I don't fucking know. I'll come up with something if I'm going to release a clicker game, which I don't know. Maybe I'm not at this point. The artwork is just not good enough for the clicker game. Well, it's not good enough for me, I don't think. I have this vision of what I want it to look like, and if I draw the art for it, it doesn't look like that. But anyway, it's just like, I got my things that I struggle with. I got my things that I work with. And I think it's important for anybody who's also trying to build shit to understand that, yeah, you struggle. You know, you have to figure stuff out, and figuring stuff out doesn't just, like, happen. You don't go, oh, well, I have a problem. Here is the solution to that problem. No, between having the problem and having the solution to that problem, you have hours of frustration and annoyance and looking shit up that doesn't make any fucking sense. Doesn't have anything to do with your problem. And you got to waste your time reading it to go, oh, that's not the problem I have. It's just ridiculous. And that's like, that's like all I had to talk about this week was how frustrating it is trying to find solutions to problems when people just don't tell you these things. There is all this tutorial content out there for Godot, but it's all designed for very specific, very basic things. It's missing all of the polish. It's missing all of the stuff that actually makes the game fun. And it just feels childish. The whole thing feels childish. People do these game tutorials here, like, this is how you build a game that does this and that and the other. And they just don't do a very good job. And that's really annoying and frustrating, and I wish people wouldn't do that. I wish somebody would actually, like, come in and show people, here's how you do a good job, and you build something that's full-featured and has, like, real content, instead of just building something and I don't know, it feels kind of arrogant to say I'm going to come in here and I'm going to show people how to build something that isn't garbage. But, like, why would I show you how to build garbage? You don't want to build garbage. I don't want to build garbage. I'm going to do my best to not build garbage. And maybe that will give you a head start on not building garbage, even if I do end up building garbage. Why do people teach you to suck? It's frustrating, and I'm not going to teach you to suck. I'm gonna teach you how to at least try to be good at what you do, because being good at what you do is, like, that's the bare fucking minimum. Like, don't you want to be good at your fucking job? Don't you want to be good at it? This is your job. Don't you want to be good at your job? If you want somebody to tell you good job, you got to do a good job, right? I mean, seems fucking obvious. Anyway, that's pretty much that. Again, do the little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all the happy horse shit, and okay, bye.